Elvis Presley stood in front of 12,000 people at the Baltimore Civic Center on May 29, 1977, opened his mouth to sing "Can't Help Falling in Love," and nothing came out. He'd sung that song thousands of times, but on this night, 3 months before his death, Elvis's mind went completely blank. For 30 seconds, he just stood there, staring at the audience while the band played. Then Elvis did something that turned a humiliating disaster into the most honest moment of his final tour. What he said to that crowd, how he recovered, and why this moment revealed how close Elvis was to total collapse would shock everyone who witnessed it. This is the story of the night Elvis forgot everything and found himself. May 29, 1977, Baltimore, Maryland. The Baltimore Civic Center was packed with 12,000 fans who'd been waiting for months to see Elvis. This was part of his final tour. In less than 3 months, Elvis would be dead. But nobody in that arena knew they were watching a man in his final weeks of performing. The show had been rough from the start. Elvis looked tired. He was sweating profusely, even though the air conditioning was cranked up. His movements were slow and labored. He forgot lyrics to several songs, stumbling through them while the band tried to cover for him. But the audience didn't care. They were just thrilled to be in the same room as Elvis Presley. They cheered every song, sang along, gave him standing ovations. Their love and support were unconditional. Elvis was about 90 minutes into the show. He'd gotten through most of his set list, though not gracefully. Charlie Hodge, his rhythm guitarist and constant stage companion, kept whispering lyrics to Elvis when he forgot them, trying to keep the show moving. "I'm going to sing a special song now," Elvis announced to the crowd. "A song that means a lot to me, a song I've been singing for almost 20 years. The band started playing the opening notes of "Can't Help Falling in Love." It was Elvis's signature closing song, the one he'd performed at virtually every concert since 1961. He'd sung it so many times he could do it in his sleep. But when Elvis opened his mouth to sing the first line, nothing came out. The band kept playing, waiting for Elvis to come in, but Elvis just stood there, staring out at the audience with a confused expression on his face. Charlie Hodge leaned over and whispered the first line, "Wise men say." Elvis heard him, but couldn't connect the words to the melody. His brain wasn't processing. The prescription drugs he'd taken before the show, combined with exhaustion and illness, had short-circuited something in his mind. The band played through the first verse with no vocals, just instrumental music, while Elvis stood frozen at the microphone. The audience started to realize something was wrong. The cheering died down. People looked at each other, confused. Why wasn't Elvis singing? James Burton, the lead guitarist, glanced at Joe Esposito in the wings. Joe's face was pale with concern. This wasn't just Elvis forgetting a line. This was Elvis completely disconnecting from reality. For 30 seconds that felt like 30 minutes, Elvis just stood there. The band played, the audience waited, and Elvis's mind was somewhere else entirely, unable to access the song he'd sung thousands of times before. Then something shifted. Elvis's eyes focused. He looked down at the microphone in his hand, then out at the crowd of 12,000 people staring at him with concern and confusion. And Elvis started laughing. Not a nervous laugh, a genuine, from-the-belly laugh. He laughed so hard he had to bend over, the microphone dangling from his hand. The band stopped playing, completely confused about what was happening. Elvis straightened up, wiped tears from his eyes, and said into the microphone, "Ladies and gentlemen, I just had the strangest experience of my entire career. I've sung Can't Help Falling in Love probably 10,000 times, and just now, standing here in front of all of you, I completely forgot how it goes." The audience didn't know how to react. Some people laughed nervously, others looked worried. "No, seriously," Elvis continued, "my mind just went blank. I opened my mouth and thought, What are the words? How does this song start? And I had no idea, none. It was like someone had erased the song from my brain. He walked to the edge of the stage, still smiling, but there was something vulnerable in his expression now. You know what's scary about that? This is what I do. This is who I am. I'm Elvis Presley, and I sing songs. And for 30 seconds just now, I couldn't remember how to do the one thing I'm famous for. The arena was completely silent now. This wasn't entertainment anymore. This was Elvis having a moment of stark honesty about his own decline. "I'm gonna be real with you," Elvis said, and his voice got quieter, more intimate. "I'm not well. I know you can see that. I'm overweight, I'm exhausted, I can barely move out here anymore. And tonight, I forgot the words to my own closing song. That's how bad things have gotten." Charlie Hodge looked panicked. This was not what you were supposed to do on stage. You didn't tell the audience you were falling apart. You maintained the illusion. You kept performing. You protected the image. But Elvis was past caring about the image. "I'm 42 years old," Elvis said. 42, and I feel like I'm 90. Every night I come out here and try to be Elvis Presley for you. And some nights, like tonight, I can't remember how to do it. The pills I take just to get through these shows, they're messing with my mind. They're making me forget things. They're making me into someone I don't recognize. Joe Esposito was frantically signaling to Elvis from the wings. "Stop talking. Get back to the show. Don't do this." But Elvis ignored him. He sat down on the edge of the stage, his legs dangling, the microphone still in his hand. The informality of it was shocking. This was Elvis Presley sitting on the stage like he was hanging out with friends, not performing for 12,000 people. "Can I ask you something?" Elvis said to the audience. "Why do you still come to these shows? You can see I'm not what I used to be. I can't move like I used to. My voice is shot. I forget lyrics. I forget entire songs, apparently. So why do you keep showing up?" There was a moment of silence. Then a woman in the front row shouted, "Because we love you." That opened the floodgates. People started shouting from all over the arena. "You're still the king. We'll always love you. You're Elvis Presley. We don't care how you look." Elvis sat there on the stage, listening to this outpouring of love and support from 12,000 strangers, and tears started running down his face. "I don't deserve you," he said into the microphone, his voice thick with emotion. "I really don't. You've been loyal to me for 20 years, and what have I given you? Terrible movies, mediocre albums, and a Vegas show where I can't even remember my own songs." "We don't care," someone shouted. "Just keep singing." Elvis wiped his eyes and smiled. "Keep singing, even when I forget the words?" The crowd laughed and applauded. "Okay," Elvis said, standing up slowly, using the microphone stand to pull himself up. "Okay, I'll keep singing, but you're going to have to help me with this one, because apparently I don't remember how it goes." The band started playing "Can't Help Falling in Love" again from the beginning. When it came time for the first line, Elvis pointed the microphone toward the audience. 12,000 people sang, "Wise men say, only fools rush in." Elvis smiled and joined in on the second line, his voice blending with the crowd. They sang the entire song together, not as a performer and his audience, but as a collective, a shared experience. When the song ended, Elvis didn't say anything. He just stood there, looking out at the crowd with an expression that seemed to say thank you and goodbye at the same time. Then he walked off stage. No encore, no final song, no big closing number. He just walked off, and everyone in that arena understood that they'd witnessed something extraordinary. Backstage, the Memphis Mafia surrounded Elvis. They didn't know whether to be angry that he'd exposed his vulnerabilities so publicly, or relieved that he'd gotten through it. "What the hell was that?" Charlie Hodge asked. You can't tell the audience you're falling apart. You can't sit on the stage and have a breakdown." Elvis looked at him with eyes that were clear for the first time all night. "Why not? It's the truth. Why keep lying to them? Why keep pretending I'm fine when I'm obviously not? Because you're Elvis Presley. You're supposed to be larger than life. You're supposed to be perfect." "I'm tired of pretending to be perfect. I'm just a person, and I'm a person who's dying, and maybe it's time people knew that." The room went silent. Nobody wanted to acknowledge what Elvis had just said, even though they all knew it was true. Dr. Nick pulled Elvis aside. "We need to talk about your medication. The memory loss, the confusion, these are serious side effects. We need to make changes." "Make whatever changes you want," Elvis said. "It doesn't matter anymore. I'm done after this tour anyway." "Done?" Dr. Nick looked alarmed. "You're canceling future shows?" "I'm done with everything. I can't do this anymore. My body can't do it. My mind can't do it. Tonight proved that." Over the next few weeks, as word spread about what happened in Baltimore, fans and critics had mixed reactions. Some thought Elvis's honesty was brave and refreshing. Others thought it was sad and uncomfortable, watching a legend admit he was falling apart. But the people who were in that arena on May 29, 1977, never forgot it. "It was the most human I'd ever seen Elvis," one audience member said years later. Not Elvis the star, but Elvis the person, admitting he was struggling, admitting he needed help, admitting he was scared, and then letting us help him finish his song. That was beautiful and heartbreaking. For the band members, that night was a wake-up call. "We'd been watching Elvis decline for months," James Burton said in an interview years later. "But that night in Baltimore, when he couldn't remember the words to Can't Help Falling in Love, that's when we realized how bad it really was. His mind was going, the pills were destroying him, and we were powerless to stop it." Elvis performed for 2 more months after Baltimore, but he never forgot what happened that night, the moment he forgot his most famous song and was forced to confront his own decline in front of 12,000 people. In his final interview before his death, Elvis mentioned that Baltimore show. "I learned something important that night. I learned that people don't love me because I'm perfect. They love me despite my imperfections. And maybe that's the greatest gift a performer can receive." Less than 3 months after that Baltimore show, on August 16, 1977, Elvis was dead. The body that had been failing him, the mind that had been betraying him, finally gave out completely. But the people who were in Baltimore on May 29, 1977, carried a different memory of Elvis's final days. Not the bloated, drug-addled performer who could barely get through a show, but the honest, vulnerable man who forgot the words to his song and let his audience help him remember who he was. If this story of vulnerability and honesty moved you, subscribe and hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to understand that admitting you're struggling is strength, not weakness. Have you ever had a moment where you had to admit you weren't okay? Let us know in the comments. Ring that notification bell for more Elvis stories that show the real person behind the legend.